Causitive faire. If you want to express having something done for you, getting something done, having something done, making something be done, you use the construction faire plus the infinitive, and we call it causative faire. Here's an example. J'ai fait réparer mon ordinateur. I have had my computer repaired, or I had my computer repaired, meaning that someone else did it for me. It wasn't me that did it, I had someone else do it. You can see that the infinitive stands beside faire and the object follows it. So we've conjugated faire into the participle composé, j'ai fait. Right next to it, the infinitive, réparer, and then the object, mon ordinateur. So for the most part, when you're using this construction, it's pretty easy, faire plus the infinitive. It can get a little bit more complicated when we add other objects into the picture. So we're going to look a little further into these, but just remember, if in the simplest of circumstances, to have something done, faire plus the infinitive. Note, and here are some of the little things we want to go into. Object pronouns precede faire, except in the affirmative imperative when they follow it, as per the normal order of object pronouns in the affirmative imperative. And in fact, we know that object pronouns must come before the verb normally. We know that if we have any compound tense, like passé composé or futur antérieur, conditionnel au passé, any of those compound tenses, we know that an object pronoun will come before the verb there as well. And when we're talking about a compound tense, of course, the verb is the auxiliary. In this instance, it's going to come before the faire, not the other verb. Yeah. So je fais chanter les élèves, je les fais chanter. Yes, so the les comes before the faire part of it. And again, if it was in the passé composé, j'ai fait, je les ai fait. Of course, the les would come before the auxiliary. Yeah. The point is that whatever form of the faire is, that it comes before this verb, not this verb. That's the important thing. We're talking here as well about the order of object pronouns with imperatives in the affirmative. Let's have a look at an example here. Fais chanter les élèves, make them sing. Fais les chanter. But again, this is what would happen in the normal order of things with the imperative in the affirmative. So, je fais chanter les élèves. I make the students sing. I make them sing. But make the students sing, make them sing. And that's what it looks like. Here's another couple of examples here. Faites-les nous servir. Have them serve us. Yeah, make them serve us. Make them serve us. And it's interesting too. Make them serve us sounds quite forceful in English. In Australian English, we use it a lot. You'll often hear more in British English, have them serve us. Yeah. As a more polite form, but it's the same thing. It's covered by causative faire. Faire will do all of that in French. Fais-le lui envoyer, have him send it to him. Yeah, have it sent to him. Voila, there we go. The next little thing we need to look at, the participle of causative faire is invariable. That means it doesn't agree. That's something we need to remember because that's a bit specific, yes? We know normally that preceding direct objects agree, yes? If we have a compound tense and it comes before, if it's an object pronoun, direct object pronoun, it'll agree. If we have a relative pronoun like que, and it precedes the verb, we have an agreement. In this instance, though, with causative faire, no agreement. Mon oncle les a fait livrer. My uncle had them delivered. Yeah, no agreement. Next point. A reflexive verb after causative faire often omits the reflexive pronoun if it's a direct object. Now, there's a reason for this. Faites s'asseoir le monsieur. We know that s'asseoir is a reflexive verb, to sit down, but it means to sit oneself down. We don't have the reflexive pronoun there for a reason, because you're not having the monsieur sit down himself, you're making him sit down. Yeah? So, faites s'asseoir le monsieur. Make him sit down. So we don't need that the reflexive pronoun. Ils ont fait réveiller les enfants. They had the children woken up. Yeah. So again, they're having the action done, if you like. We don't need the reflexive pronoun there. There's also this construction here, which is sometimes confusing. It is also quite commonly used when you have something done to yourself. Often when you have your hair done, or have a shave done, or have a dress made, when you have something done for yourself, because it's for yourself, it's back to yourself, it's reflexive. Here's some examples. Marie se fait couper les cheveux par le coiffeur. Of course, it's hairdresser probably that's doing it. She has her hair cut. She has cut the hair back to herself. Okay. Elle se fait couper les cheveux. If she had it done to someone else, and you'll see how that works, that would come after, and we would say, elle fait couper les cheveux aux enfants would mean she has the children's haircut. But when she's having it done to herself, it's elle se fait couper les cheveux. Yeah. Ils se sont fait raser. They have themselves shaved, or they had themselves shaved. And note the passé composé is conjugated with être because it is a reflexive verb here, yeah? Se faire, reflexive. So we're going to conjugate it with être. Ils se sont fait, they had themselves shaved, rasé. And note, yes, in English we use the past participle there. You don't in French. Causitive faire is the appropriate tense of faire plus the infinitive. That's something else we need to remember. It's the infinitive. Yeah? Elle s'est fait faire une robe par la couturière. She had a dress made by the couturière. So elle s'est fait, she had it done back to herself, indirect object, no agreement, and also it's causative faire. Faire une robe, there is our infinitive, the verb. Yeah? She had a dress made. If there are two objects, one must be the direct object and the other one must be an indirect object. Okay. In general, it's the human element which becomes the indirect object. Here's an example. In English, you won't know. We will just say, I make the children clean the room. They look both to be direct objects because in English, depending on where we put a pronoun or depending on where we put a noun, you might not need to put the two. So it's quite misleading and quite confusing if you're comparing it with English. Here's how it looks in French. If we have something like I make the children clean the room, je fais nettoyer la pièce, because je fais, and then here's our infinitive, nettoyer la pièce, which is the direct object, aux enfants. Two ways we can do it actually. We can either say aux enfants, or we can say par les enfants. What we're going to talk about later is that maybe one of these forms is a little less ambiguous than the other. If you read a sentence like this, though, you need to be able to know what it means. But if you were writing a sentence, we'd probably suggest that you take this option. Yeah, I have the room cleaned. Je fais nettoyer la pièce. Je fais, present tense of faire, plus our infinitive, la pièce, aux enfants, or par les enfants. Either one is okay. In pronoun form, then, this becomes je la leur fais nettoyer. Yeah, because we're going to replace that with la and this with leur. Or, if we're using the par form, je la fais nettoyer par eux. Because par, we've got our preposition here. The next bit is going to be our disjunctive pronoun, like avec eux, chez eux. Yeah. Two ways to do it. It's sometimes better to use par to avoid ambiguity. That's what I was saying. So if you were writing the sentence, it would probably make more sense to use par. Because if you had something like il fait envoyer les articles à l'employé, this could either mean il fait envoyer les articles, he has the articles sent to the employee. It could mean that, as well as meaning by the employee. This construction, if you make it into the indirect object, it could either mean to or by. So if you use par, you avoid the ambiguity. This makes it clear that the employee is doing the sending. Il fait envoyer les articles par l'employé. It's absolutely certain he has the articles sent by the employee. So this is probably as tricky as causative faire gets when you have more than one object. But just remember, as long as you're clear on what's being done to whom by whom. In some instances, okay, maybe I lied, it may look like there are three objects. Let's have a look at this example. Elle se fait lire la lettre par l'avocat. She has the lawyer read the letter to her. Okay, she has the letter read to her by the lawyer. So we've got se faire here, but we've got our direct object here, and then we've got the person doing it here. Yeah. Il fait chanter la Marseillaise aux invités par les enfants. So he has the children sing the Marseillaise to the guests by the children. And so this is clear here that this is to the guests and by the children. Something else to remember, the direct object of faire may not necessarily be a single noun. It could be a whole clause. J'ai fait savoir à ma mère que je ne rentrerai pas dîner. And this whole thing is a direct object. But that's not going to make such a difference. If you're looking at it this way, I had made known to my mother that I wouldn't be coming home to dinner. The important thing is that you know that you wouldn't, in English, while you can say, I made my mother know, or I had my mother know, or I had my mother informed, that this would be happening. In English, it doesn't. It sounds like it could be a direct object. The main thing is that you remember in French, you have known to your mother this news, and that's what the importance of knowing that this is a direct object, and that it's that long means that's why it goes in that position as well, and that's why we've got à ma mère in this position. Here are some other constructions. Rendre and a direct object means to make someone, we've talked about this before, when you make someone something, yes? If you make someone do something, so if it's with a verb, then you're going to use faire. But if you make them an adjective, you render them something, then you're going to use rendre. Cette annonce l'a rendue heureuse. This announcement made her happy. Made her happy. Le vin les rend malades. Wine makes them sick. Yeah. So that's something we've talked about before, about using rendre with an adjective. Donner plus indirect object to make plus a noun. Here's a typical example. Le grand air lui a donné faim. In English we say the fresh air made him hungry. The fresh air gave him hunger, literally. So you use donner with a noun, to give him hunger. Probably you see that in this kind of construction most frequently, and you do see this a fair bit with the adjective. And that is a little about causative faire.